So these are, I teach a level 3 study group as well, but it's no big deal. We talk about the same things, or essentially the same kind of theme. So I'm going to take you kind of through what a study group looks like with those guys, but specifically speaking to what Thomas asked me to talk about. So what we're going to look at is in group management, group workouts, individual workouts, and scaling. And I'm going to give you definitions from CrossFit. So what you're going to see here comes from a majority of either your level 1, your level 2 handbooks, or what you'll find on the CrossFit certified trainer study material. That is where all this information's come from. So if you want to reference it later, you can find that information there, okay? And the first thing that we talk about, or what we all kind of should know, or you want to have, is a plan, okay? To manage your time well, you need a plan. And the new level 1, how long did you guys take your level 1? Seit wann war das? Ein Jahr, zwei, drei, vier?
I think for me it's 4, 3
Yeah.
or 4. Yeah.
Okay. Bei die Level 1 gibt es eine neues Programming Vorlesung. And we talk exactly about how to write this time plan out. So if you took your level 1 maybe a year or 2 ago, you probably didn't get the same lecture. So the new level 1 handbook will give you examples how to prepare a class. Everything from a 5x5 back squat, how to run Fran, and how to run a 20-minute AMRAP. And it basically tells you everything to do within, which I think most of you guys do, is a 60-minute class. So that's a great place to start. Organizing your space, your equipment for optimal flow and experience, you also need a plan. I don't know what size gyms you work in. My gym has insgesamt 150 Quadratmeter. Thomas in Munich and CrossFit München, they have a lot more space. So those sometimes are different considerations. It's good to practice that plan. Maybe you and your coaches walk through, hey, we're going to run a 4-station rotation of Fight Gone Bad. We have 12 members in the class, but we only have 12 rowers or 2 rowers. So how do we do that? So rehearsals and a plan is a great way to do that. And you need to start planning ahead. So that means every week, for some Beispiel in my gym, we write a coach's brief. And with that comes these plans, and we rehearse them the week ahead. If time allows, that's a great way to attack this as well. You shouldn't be trying to figure it out in the middle of the class, then it's too late, and then your members kind of notice that. So for your group management, this is always our first consideration: safety. The last thing we want to do, especially if you're running a workout in a small gym like mine and doing Fight Gone Bad, and people continually need to rotate around because we don't have enough equipment for them. How do they do that safely? We know everyone, as soon as their heart rate goes above 100 beats per minute, they get 20% more dumber. So we need to make sure that they understand how it goes. In my instance, like in my gym, you just go from front to back every time. Doesn't matter what kind of workout we do, you go from the front of the gym to the back of the gym, and they know that, and that's routine for us. The next thing for this is, do you guys have an emergency plan? And I know this seems kind of maybe not what you were expecting, but how do you guys recognize and identify an injury or an emergency in your gym? Do you have a code word? Do you clap your hands 3 times? Do you stomp your feet? And what does everybody do when someone gets hurt? And this is a great piece to manage, then another part of group management that most people don't really ever consider or think about. And last but not least, have you guys practice it. This is another great piece of group management, especially when we talk about workouts with box jumps or rope climbs, where the potential for injury is very high, or even, again, and I just use my gym because we're very small, if we're doing a movement with shoulder to overhead and people are doing burpees, barbell falls on someone, you know, what do? We have a code word in our gym. If the coach is here, and then pink panties, that is then to get everyone outside. That means, hey, stop what we're doing, run 400 meters. And then we can then address the casualty. The worst thing that you can have happen is someone get injured and everyone gather around. Although they all want to help, they're no help at all. So just keep that in the back of your head. It's often something we do not talk about, but it will play a very significant role in the longevity of your career as a coach and your gym as to how you handle that situation, okay? There's a great article on the CrossFit level 3 study material, and it's called the Safety Primer. It's relatively long, but it's like a PDF document that has like 12 pages that'll help you kind of come up with a plan, give you a checklist of what you should have and what you should do in cases of emergency. So that was enough about safety, okay? Now, what we're going to talk now is about how to coach a single modality day like a bench press, because often what we see is that these are most often performed incorrectly, meaning they're either done too fast and that then afterwards we throw in a workout like Fran or Elizabeth, or the athlete doesn't achieve the correct stimulus from this. So strength training, you're going to pay the price. So a lot of things we take for granted that people walking in our gym actually know how to bench press, squat, or deadlift, and they don't. Even if they've come from a conventional strength training background, there's always opportunities for us to teach and learn, or for them to learn from us. And in your lesson plan, you give yourself approximately 15 minutes to teach these things over and over again, because you'll always more than likely have someone new in your class. And the bench press is a great example because it's a very, how do you say, like a very known movement, right? It doesn't matter if they come from the global gym or if they've been in the military. Everyone has done bench press, but the question is have they done it correctly? And the bench press and squat have some of the highest levels or potential for injury. So how much time do you actually spend teaching the bench press versus training it? What we know, though, is if done correctly, the bench press is a great exercise to strengthen arms, shoulders, and the pecs. So we're going to dive into that, and you're going to see we're going to go from a single modality day where we're just talking about coaching one person doing one thing to a team workout. And then we're going to look at how you would scale a group setting based on how athletes are defined: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And in the text, it'll give you some definitions that you can kind of use for, I don't know what you use in your gym. We use appointment, maybe you use mind body, but then you look on the list and I see Thomas, Louisa, Sven. You can kind of already categorize them as intermediate, advanced, and beginner, and already start to provide then scaling options for them. Because if you don't do that ahead of time, you waste time trying to figure that out in the class, and then you're wasting their time. So when we're talking about a single modality day, again, something like the bench press or squat, most people's mistake is that they think it's easy to perform. So we kind of take for granted again that people know what they're doing, and we don't spend a lot of significant time on that thing because we feel things like the power clean, snatch are more complicated and inherently more difficult for athletes. But what we know here is that we need to make sure that our young athletes, and when we speak about young in this lecture, we're talking about training experience. I don't mean from age. There are people that are 60 years old that would be considered a young athlete because they've never benched or never squatted or never deadlift. So that's when you see here young athletes. It's also referring to training experience. So don't let athletes try to figure these things out on their own. They're not inherently that simple as we may think. And also as coaches or CrossFitters, you guys have already some inherent experience that makes these things seem relatively easy to you. Furthermore, with these single modality days, for a lot of people, it is very scary to either put a weight on their back or above their face or chest. And this will inherently keep them from going to submaximal loads, meaning when we talk about training the single modality day, more than likely that should be at a weight that's 85% of their 1 rep max or even more if possible. That is our goal. So what we're talking about here, just some safety things. I brought these up maybe just for you to kind of do a little bit of mental checklist, but how many people in your gym do you allow to use the false grip? We're talking about thumbs over the bar, not thumbs wrapped around the bar. For most people, even a false grip will allow them sometimes to lift more, but inherently it's more dangerous. So if we go back to our first point of group management and safety, we understand that this could put people at more risk. And then we talk about vertical forearms, because vertical forearms then reduce shoulder impingement. And then the wrist should remain absolutely straight through the movement. So these little things you could really drill in on in your what we would call then the specific warm-up. Remember, you have two types of warm-up: general, the general warm-up being anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes, and you can make that 100 burpees per time. You can play a game. But for 15 minutes, you should do a specific warm-up, and it should focus. I keep pointing to the screen with my pen like you guys can see what I'm pointing to, and you can't. So I'll use the arrow. Make sure that you focus on these things over and over again, to include what happens in an emergency in a workout or like in a movement with a squat or bench where spotting may be required. Again, do you have a code word? Does the athlete dump the load? Does the partner take it from him or her? In the moment where that's necessary or it could save someone's life is not the time that we should be figuring that out. So we want to have that already ahead of time and understand what that is and make sure the athletes know what to do as well. So here are some things just to think about again. Spotting, we just talked about that. Understand that benching starts with the floor, so we're establishing a good base. And then we talk about lower, pause, explode. And ultimately, for single modality days, the most part, we're going to keep reps low and simple. Now, by doing so, if athletes cannot lift 85% of their 1 rep max, what kind of training stimulus are they going to get out of this day? Good or bad? You can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. What do you think? Probably not going to get the intended stimulus we want, right? So you have some freedom based on, again, if this is an experienced or younger athletes, to keep these reps high, but the rep scheme's simple. So we might do a 3x10, 4x8, in order then to, in fact, build consistency, mechanics, and then layer on intensity. But this was thought with an athlete that has some degree of training experience behind them, all right? And again, these are all things that you can do in your specific warm-up to prepare them for then the workout. When we talk about here, so that was teaching a single modality day. Do you guys have any questions so far on that? Again, I'll tell you the most often error we see is that most coaches do not have a plan for this day. And this workout then will say, for example, that this was 5x5 back squat is completed in 20 to 25 minutes. That's with warm-up, specific warm-up, and the execution of the workout. Whereas the workout alone in this instance should take 25 minutes by itself. So by not writing out the plan and not taking enough time in the specific warm-up to prepare the athletes correctly, we see coaches rush through this, and then they still have 20 to 25 minutes left in the class where the athletes or clients look at them like, what are we going to do now? And then they throw on an additional benchmark or something like that, which then really does not do well. It does not speak well to group or time management and often leads to injury. The next slides we're going to see talk about how to develop team workouts. In the Corona site, I know team workouts are not such a possible or maybe even popular thing, but they will come back. And when doing so, it's important that you think about these things when we consider riding a team workout and managing. Obviously, in my gym, we'll offer every 2 weeks a team workout where we can double the numbers of participants that normally participate in the class. So that's already a new stress to the coach. He or she has went from coaching 8 people at a time to now 16 because we do this special day where we say today is a team workout. So you've already burdened yourself by teaching more athletes than usual. So what do we look for when trying to manage that? We think about obviously male and females having to work together. What if we have elite and novice or even elite and beginners athletes working together? And these should motivate, amplify camaraderie or, the team spirit, team guys, those type of things. Also, in an ideal workout, we plan for 16, but what happens when only 13 people show up? What is the workout option then for someone that has to go alone or someone that has to work in a team of 3? And then make sure that your team workouts as you plan and design them don't require new equipment. It should fit within what you have in your gym and shouldn't require the owner to always have to buy something new. Obviously, you would want to develop your inventory within the gym, but try to work with what you have. Even in the Corona site, think about, can you go to a local park? Can you use a sports plots? What can you use that doesn't require either now, because of the Corona, the exchange of equipment? And if so, how do you limit or reduce that contact of that equipment so that we reduce infection rates or we reduce the risk of COVID-19? Yeah. From here, what we try to consider is just rely on low skill movements while trying to develop a complicated movement. That means that partner A and B should not be doing a clean and a snatch at the same time. What we might often see is that partner A does a hang snatch, a full snatch, a clean, while partner B is then maybe doing something like a run, ab mat sit-ups. Whereas that also allows then the coach to really focus on 8 people doing a complicated movement at once instead of now 16 people doing a complex movement at once, which just makes our job even more difficult. So the workout should pair a complicated movement with a not so complicated movement. And we already talked about, because of Corona, think about how you could do these, or maybe you have to do the workouts outside and how you would change or have to change those to accommodate that. And what you want to do here is provide exposure during your normal programming, your single modality days. You want to develop the capacity and understanding in your athletes. So when you come up with a team workout that has a list of multiple things, they clearly can understand and follow, like the chipper filthy 50, and they don't have to ask you every 5 minutes, what's this movement? How does this go? But that they can actually work through that and get a good workout of it. So that's what we're looking at when we're thinking about team workouts. So basically what it's saying here is when the team workouts are well constructed, physiological effect is equal to the individual workouts. But we understand with a team workout, most people are going to push much harder than if they were alone. And that's the beauty of then, in fact, the team workout. We understand that we can't program a team workout every day because it would have diminishing returns. But understand that when we do this, that the workout should match the effort that the people are willing to put forth, all right? They're going to come to the team workout motivated because they're going to get to work out with Louise, or they're going to get to work out with their buddy Swin that they haven't seen for a long time, and they are going to be motivated. So make sure that the effort required to complete that workout matches their level of motivation, okay? They'll get fired up for it. We normally see much better results when we program a workout as a team than by individuals. So I just took you guys to how to program then, or teach, coach, manage a single modality day, a team workout. What I'm going to do now is bring it back down to the individual level. And I'm just going to talk about some things that you should see at the individual level when managing a group or coaching a class. And then we'll kind of fan that out or expand that to the level or the levels of experience that you're going to experience within your class and how these all apply. So these are straight out of your level 1. Remember, day 2 workout. We paired you up with someone. You either did some med ball cleans and some sit-ups, or I don't even remember what the old workouts were. But we explained to you that we wanted you to do these 3 things during the day 2 workout at the level 1. And even when people come back to our level 2, they still struggle to do these things correctly. So we're going to look at some key points to make this job a little bit easier for you. Do you guys have any questions so far? Am I talking too fast? Hast du nur einfach Bahnhof verstehen? Alles good? Okay. Good. Then what we're talking about with teaching is having some awareness and knowledge of safety and fitness. So you should have a little bit of a fitness background and safety background, so you can then deal with issues when it arises. If you have someone that challenges your experience or says, why are we doing this? And or for the safety. Yeah, why do we have to clean the bars or plates? Or why do I got to stand here and not there? And that all comes with being able to effectively communicate what your intent is. Understand that you don't have to be able to do a muscle up in order to teach it and coach it. We need to understand the points of performance, understand how it's done, and how we can best get our athletes to perform that. But just because you can't snatch 100 kilos doesn't mean that you cannot coach someone to snatch 100 kilos. But it all comes with being able to effectively communicate. And we'll see a few more examples of that here in a minute. Seeing. This is often where we see it go really wrong for a lot of people. They have the teaching part. They know the points of performance. They understand the movement. But what they fail to see is start positions, the dynamic movement, and a finish position. And the only thing I can tell you to do is when working in a group, the start position should be the same across the board. If we think about a deadlift, you can scan the group and relatively see with ease if everyone has their weight in their heels, the bar on their shins, and their back straight, and leave it at that. Do one quick look around the class and then focus on one athlete at a time. In the deadlift, what I'm looking for is them to maintain a relative, the same torso angle as they stand up. And when we're finished, I look around the class one more time to make sure everyone's standing up tall. And that's it. And I do that progressively through the class. So the start position consists of me watching everyone. The dynamic portion of the movement consists of me watching an individual. And the finish position consists of me checking back to the group. And that's exactly what you see it here. See the group, see an individual, see the group, okay? Furthermore, if you see something when watching the individual, you need to see it more than once. It just may have been that they made a mistake or they went on their toes because they lost their balance. When trying to see faults, if you see it one time, okay, observe and try to see it again. And if you see it the second time, then it is a fault. Sometimes they're just mistakes, and there's a difference in that, all right? And that means if working in a small group, you noticed it, work around the group. If you come back to that individual and they still present that flaw, then you know that you need to move on to the next step, which is correcting. Using successful cues, the key to a successful cue is the one that helps the athlete. There is no black or white. There is no magic cue that fixes everything. It's the one that helps you develop a connection with that athlete and helps them move better. And that's why you need to know multiple corrections for each fault. Often we'll hear coaches say the same thing over and over again. Chest up, weight in your heels. Chest up, weight in your heels. Most individuals are trying very hard, in fact, to do such that, but they can't make the connection. So you've got to have other ways. Instead of weight in the heels, toes up, chest up, hands up, whatever the case may be. But understand that you need to attack it from different angles. Triage faulty movement. When we see more than one fault present, make a choice. Either you want to correct that they don't have their weight in their heels or that they have a rounded spine, but not both at the same time unless it's a very advanced athlete who can respond well to your cues. And also with triage in a movement, you have to decide what is your priority for the day. In the example, if we're doing a workout like Cindy, and we have an athlete that struggles, one, to go below parallel and maintain a neutral spine, I may, in fact, then allow them to go with a less than optimal neutral spine through the full range of motion because Cindy is in only with body weight. They do that movement throughout their life, throughout their day. Their risk is relatively low. Whereas if we're doing 5x5 back squat, I may then say we're going to maintain a neutral spine and not go through the full range of motion, meaning you're going to sit to a box or sit to parallel and stand back up. Both are the correct answer as long as you know why that you're doing that and you've triaged to meet your intent or to help the athlete be successful. Last but not least, often I think military, Army guys are really bad about this is we don't balance critique with praise. And here I said, make a sandwich. Hey, Thomas, I like that you're keeping the weight in your heels, but can you keep your chest up? And I appreciate how hard you're working, right? Try to sandwich the bad within the good, okay? And that'll really help athletes because if we're always telling them, hey, keep your chest up, it only gets frustrating. for them and us as well. So try to balance the good with bad. It's not always all bad. And make sure that you highlight when they actually do something well. And that's my next point. When you say something like good job, the athlete doesn't know what you're talking about. So when you say, hey, Thomas, good job keeping your chest up, that's a different than saying, Thomas, good job, and walking on by. The athlete may, in fact, not even know what he or she did well because of their training experience level. So make sure to highlight what you say. Hey, great job locking out overhead. Hey, great job extending your hips in the burpees. Often what most coaches will do is walk by and be like, great job, Thomas. Great job, Louisa. Hey, Swin, super. But they don't actually know what they're doing well and what they're not doing well. So just make sure to highlight that for them, okay? Especially if that's something that you've triaged and talked to them already about. They want to know that they're in fact getting better. So that was then teaching, seeing, correcting. The other things that come along with being a good coach is then demonstration, presence, and attitude. I can't help you with either of those from this computer screen. So videotape yourself, and check your own movement, check your coach's movement. If you're aware that you don't do something well, then say, hey, I know that, I've got an immature squat, I'm working on it, but try to watch these points of performance. And then with presence and attitude, people should want to drink beer with you after the workout. That's kind of how I gauge it. So no, just bring it every time you stand in front of people. The last part that I find often really not done very well is then scaling. And that's a big piece of group management, because then we have athletes that finish either the workout too early or it takes them too long. And ultimately our goal is that everyone finishes about the same time. And understand, as we're coming back from Corona and people are coming back to you in your classes, morale and ego is going to play a very big role. And if Thomas always finishes the workout last, it's going to start to have a detrimental effect, okay? So even maybe a tip for you guys, if you can or are allowed to program for your gyms, think about more in the time in the direction of doing time priority, 8-minute, 12-minute, 15-minute AMRAP, so that everyone finishes the same. That's just something to consider as we think about bringing people back into the gym. When we think about scaling, there's a couple of things that we prioritize. And that first one is then load, speed, and range of motion. So you see these things up here. And these will be the things that dictate or impact people's intensity. How much weight can they lift? How fast can they run? And what kind of range of motion do they possess? Especially when we think about in a workout like Grace, can they do 60 kilos 30 times? If we have a workout where we're talking about Helen and they have to run 400 meters, can they do that efficiently? And when we consider a workout that, let's just think Amanda, requires a full snatch, are they even able to achieve that range of motion? And by doing so, we can then better prepare them to be successful in the workout and make our jobs a little bit easier. At the bottom, at the end of the day, we're just making sure, you'll see here, and you hear this often in CrossFit, that the athlete achieves the intended stimuli. Meaning, if we think about a workout like Amanda, I want an athlete to take an object from floor or from the hang to over their head, and I want to see them pull and press. Whether that means that they do that with a PVC pipe and they do ring rows and ring dips, I've still achieved that, okay? But when we think about our everyday athletes, those intended stimuluses should lead to general health and fitness. That's what we're training most people for, not the games, okay? And I'm sure most of you guys understand that. So what we're going to look at then is how to scale down some of these things. And we'll talk about primary pathways, and we're just talking about short, medium, and long, making sure that if we program a 400-meter run, that we scale it so that everyone kind of gets the same stimulus that an above average CrossFitter would get from a 400-meter run. Meaning, if a 400-meter run for an above average CrossFit athlete is in the ballpark of, we say, a minute 30, we've got to scale that so that someone may in fact run only 200 meters, but run it that fast and push themselves just as hard. when you think about here, what they're talking about here is just forecasting the workout. Maybe a helpful tip for you guys, if again you are programming or you get the access to the workouts, is you do the workouts the week before your athletes do them, or the morning before you do them, so that you can in fact, one, predict when they should finish, and also you can provide insight as to how they're going to feel during the workout. These are very crucial things to help someone kind of get through a workout. So I'll show you guys later. There's a chart that'll help you if you want to calculate when people should finish a workout. It's pretty cool, and you can find it on the CrossFit Level 3 website study materials. Think about time domain also impacts volume. If we want a specific amount of repetitions done in a certain amount of time, one athlete may in fact be able to achieve 100 reps in this time domain, 7 minutes, where another athlete may be only able to do 75. So we have to account for that. And that then brings us back to whether we need to scale the load or not. Do we want then muscle endurance, or do we want muscle strength? Just something that you need to know what the intended stimulus from your workout is so that you can adjust accordingly. When we think about general movement patterns, we're just thinking about push, pull, and squat. Those are the 3 movement patterns that CrossFit uses when riding workouts. So we wouldn't want to scale a pull movement with a pull with a press. You know what I mean? So if the workout calls for me to do chin-ups, I'm not going to substitute that with push-ups, okay? So just that's something to keep in mind, understanding that those are the big 3 that we focus on. And then to preserve the movement patterns, you can think about them also in these 3 ways. Weightlifting is defined by CrossFit as controlling your body and an object in space. And that can be simply as defined as a kettlebell swing, a barbell snatch. Gymnastics then are defined as controlling your body through space. A pull-up, taking your chin from below a bar to on top, or a burpee, throwing yourself on the floor. And last but not least, the 3rd one we have is monostructural metabolic conditioning, and that we define that as anything that you can do cyclic or repetitive for long periods of time. When you consider this last one, you need to also consider terrain and weather, because we know that 400-meter sprints on the track is going to be significantly different than 400 meters of sprints in the sand or uphill. Yeah. Also, when you look at weightlifting, you have kind of 2 options. It can be heavy and low repetitions, or high repetitions and lightweight. And with gymnastics, same thing. We want it to be high skill, low repetitions, or low skill, high repetitions. So keep those things in mind. Understand that the workout, 30 muscle ups per time for our above average CrossFit athlete, that's low skill, right? So when we think about that, how could you scale that so that everyone in your gym would get the same stimulus, all right? And just something to keep in the back of your head when scaling these down. I'll show you guys this table 1. I hope it comes up. I hope I still have it in here. But understand that to preserve the movement patterns based on that compound yet irreducible, we talked about that in what is CrossFit. Remember, they just can't sit, they're not easily broken down. So they're multiple joint movements, right? So we don't want to replace the squat with leg extensions or something like that, unless then in fact an injury requires us to do so. Last but not least, we want to think about the planes of motion, sagittal, frontal, coronal, or plane, and just understand what movements move in what planes. It's very important to understand as well. What plane is a burpee done in? What plane is a squat done in? And make sure that your scaling meets that intent as well. So when we think about timed workouts and it's not skill development, we're trying to get the desired metabolic response, and that will vary from person to person. A tip I can give you guys is include this already in your warm-up. Okay, everyone, we're going to run 400 meters. If you finish 400 meters in 1:30 or faster in the workout, you will complete 400 meters. If the 400 meters takes you longer than 2 minutes, you will then run 300 meters, so on and so forth. You understand? So I'm already setting up then the priority, and we're keeping up this metabolic response that we want, that it should be a sprint. Last but not least, when we look in here, movement complexity. We can take a movement like the clean and jerk, and we can break it down into a power clean and push press, meeting the same intent, but we eventually want to guide our athletes towards having them to be able to do clean and jerk. So you may, have the athlete do a clean plus a push jerk, a clean and jerk, doesn't matter. But what we're talking about here is stagnation and simplified scales. If we always scale someone the same way, they'll never get better. Example, last Monday, instead of down ups, which we normally scale burpees with for those that can't, everyone had to do inchworms, and they died because all we've been doing is down ups. So we threw a little something different at them, and they got a totally different stimulus. So just keep that in mind. Bands are a great example. If we always let people do pull-ups with bands, they'll never get away from them. They get addicted to them. When we talk about volume, all right, how long they've trained and how recently they've trained, volume will become an issue because what we'll start to see is that eccentric movement. We're talking about lowering, slowly extending the muscle, or lowering under contraction when we think about a GHD, a pull-up, and that's where we start to see then incidences with then rhabdomyolysis. So the poison is in the dose. So make sure that we scale that so that the intent is to achieve that volume or intended stimulus. And you've kind of got to be careful with that one. That's a tricky one. Do I want you to do, for example, we'll just say for me example, my 1 rep max clean and jerk is 80 kilos. Today's workout is Grace. So there's 2 things that can happen. I can do 30 repetitions at 40 kilos, which I should be able to finish in a time domain of 3 to 5 minutes, which is predicted for Grace, or even faster. Or I could scale that down, and I'm going to do 15 repetitions, but at 60 kilos, and still finish within the 3 to 5 minutes. So both options are good. The second option is pushing me more towards getting the opportunity to do it RX, where that first option is helping me achieve the volume or total reps as prescribed in the workout. That makes sense? That's a tricky one sometimes. So when we talk about reducing rep schemes, when taking that down, all we're doing again is trying to make sure that the above average athlete and the normal athlete get the kind of same stimulus in here. So we may think of a rep scheme like 21-15-9, and we may reduce it to 15-12-9. Just so that inexperienced or kind of untrained athlete can then keep up with our above average athlete. So, and that's basically what it's advisable to, yeah. So again, but there's also nothing wrong if you say, hey, today, man, Thomas, you're going to do 21-15-9. I know it's going to take 10, 15 minutes, and that's all right, as long as that's part of your plan and they understand why they're doing it as well, okay? There's really no black and white answers for this scaling and getting people to get what you want for them out of the workout, as long as you understand why you're doing it and you have a plan. And okay, so what this is talking about here is when we have an inexperienced athlete, and say the workout is Elizabeth, and you have them do med ball cleans, and here it's saying dip from a box. And because you as a coach perceive that to be an easier movement than what's prescribed, you shouldn't always necessarily think that you need to increase the repetitions. You need to remember that that person's having to do that movement already scaled because of their lack of fitness. And actually by doubling, let's say, okay, you're going to do ring dips, but you're going to do twice as many repetitions. Often the case we see with single unders and double unders, the person that has to do the single unders is untrained. So actually making them do more or double the amount of repetitions actually is no benefit to them at all. And that's what they're talking about here. hey, you can't do ring rows, so I'm going to tell you to do twice as many dips from the box. So you just have to be careful with that and make sure that, in fact, the athlete has the capacity to do so. If they're having to scale it, it may mean that they don't actually have the capacity to do more, and you shouldn't actually increase the volume for them. All right, when we're talking about load, right, we always want people to work towards getting them to do the workout RX, but it may never happen, all right, and that's also okay. But these are some things we consider. It's more considered the original stimulus and long-term progression of the athlete than to try to blow them up, in one workout. Scale the load so that they can maintain those points of performance. The appropriate load will vary from day to day, and this is a great tool for you. I don't write loads on the boards. Actually, what we recommend, or what we'll say in a workout like Grace, is we'll say, hey, we're going to have 15 minutes to warm up. And I want you to find a clean and jerk that you can do 5 to 7 times unbroken. And that then becomes their weight for the workout. And that does vary from time to time. Sometimes we'll say, hey, you're going to go back and you're going to repeat, Grace, with the weight that you've done previously, if you have to do it scaled, and or you're going to do it as RX, as that applies to the athlete, okay? And again, last thing here, be wary of reducing the load to the point that the athlete accumulates more reps than appropriate for his experience. Don't go so light that they can do 90 repetitions in a workout like Grace, which is totally absurd. That totally defeats the purpose, okay? When we talk about range of motion, big thing is to remember that we're trying to achieve that ultimate display of power. So a limited range of motion, when we in fact do that, reduces the athlete's ability to produce power. And you have to understand that and be willing to sacrifice that, but understand why. Scaling range of motion requires the ability to identify those points of performance and understand. So I understand that I need you to get your hip below your knee in the squat. What other movement can I scale, or what other movement can I present to you to help develop that ability, or the ability to do so? Is it a lunge? Is it a step up? Is it a step down while maintaining a neutral spine during a loaded movement? Often, if you think about this, if you cannot squat well with 2 legs, it's probably more than likely that you cannot squat good with 1 leg. So we often kind of put we say it in English, the cart before the horse. And what you might want to do here in your training practices now is identify single leg movements and make sure that they can in fact go with their hip below parallel and maintain a neutral spine in a single leg movement, and then ramp it up to a squat movement. Whereas we kind of often do it backwards. We'll often have people kind of begin with their squat, and then we might scale them back to the lunge. Maybe a better way is to then approach this with a lunge and then move them to a squat, okay? That is not CrossFit HQ's advice. That's just Coach Mac telling you how sometimes I look at things, okay? And then, again, we talk about range of motion will vary day to day. Exceeding safe range of motion, we know, just increases risk of injury and decreases efficiency. But again, if our intent is for our athlete to really get 20 rounds of Cindy, we may kind of sacrifice that safety in order to get a range of motion that's desired, or to sit to a ball, because that's our entire intent. And that can vary day to day as long as we know why we're doing it. If you understand that a range of motion, there is a limitation, try to understand from where it comes from, okay? And try to develop skills and drills so that the athlete can continue to work on that. And that's where we often see. The point of where they have a range of motion issue or problem is normally not where the problem lies. It's somewhere else. So try to be objective, look at it from different angles. Why, in fact, can my athlete not get below parallel? Is it because they have tight hips? Is it because they have an immature squat? Is it because their knees are caving in? Do they lack the range of motion in the ankles? And then just keep the scaling options, or for when scaling for range of motion, just keep it simple. And that's kind of the whole thing throughout all this. You just got to keep it very simple. Keep it safe and keep it in line with our charter of technique versus intensity. as we continue to build that technique, the intensity will come. All right. They'll be able to move well. They'll be able to produce more power. Power is defined as intensity, and intensity gets them the results that they want. Here we go. This is that last pit. You don't have to listen to me much longer, but I'm going to kind of show you how CrossFit defines experience levels in a typical CrossFit class. Okay. And this will then help you identify your scaling options or how to scale for an athlete when working with lots of people in your class, okay? And this is very broad, okay? It's just to kind of give you an idea of what we think of and what we look at within a class. So a beginner, big thing here is they're still developing that range of motion, body awareness, and still trying to learn those 9 foundational movements, all right? That pretty much sums up a beginner. And what you notice here is beginners need specific guidance on how to scale most elements in the workout. The biggest fault that we often see is you spend all your time with this athlete and no time with the other athletes. It is good to identify and understand that they need specific guidance on how to scale, but you can't waste or spend all your time with them. I shouldn't say waste, but if you spend all your time with them, what's with the other 10 people in your class, okay? So that's beginner, intermediate, can consistently perform the 9 foundational movements. They know what they are. They understand the points of performance, and they can go through a full range of motion. That intermediate athlete, which probably most of you deal with, has some very clear defined goals. I want to do toes to bar. I want a 5-minute Fran. I want this. I want that. All right. However, the problem for them is their baseline strength. They still lack in the ability to really achieve a 1 rep max squat based on technique or even some range of motion, right? And that can kind of really determine how you're going to scale for them. In my example, I can't lift 1 rep maxes. They're not my thing, but I can work at 80% of my 1 rep max for a lot of repetitions. And that's kind of what that's talking about here. These athletes can still get a very good workout of a workout that may be what we would consider heavy, but it can't be based off of their 1 rep max. It's kind of got to be more of a by feel type thing. So we got to get them up to where they're in that 70 to 80% of their 1 rep maxes, if that's what the workout calls for. But just understand that they have a pretty good understanding, but they're still going to require some of your attention when it comes to loading and getting the right load for them, right? But these guys are pretty easy to work with, and this is probably the majority of people that you work with. And then experience, right? They have mastered all the gymnastics elements and are working on advanced movements. Here we say they're experienced, but we also say that they're still working. Whoops, sorry. They're still working on those advanced movements. And this is where a lot of us make mistakes because we don't further develop them, right? They can come in, they can do a muscle up or 5. They could snatch 50, 60 kilos. They can do double unders. And they go off and kind of are doing their own thing in the workout, right? But we see here they're still refining their form, technique, mobility, right? In order to then increase their maximal lifts. So just as much as attention that we give to the beginner, we should be giving to them as well, okay? It's probably much more specific. It's probably much more in detail, which means it's going to take you a little bit more time to plan out. But you cannot neglect these guys as well, okay? And then this is the one we love, right? The athlete that went to Mallorca for 3 weeks, was on Balderman, partied for 3 weeks real hard, and thinks that they can return back to the level of fitness from which they left, all right? And the only thing that I tell you guys here is to be wary of these guys because we know that they have the higher chance of rhabdomyolysis, okay? It will, in fact, not take them long to get back to where they were, but we also need to approach them with the thought process that they've been away from training for some time and we need to ease them into that. I know that's a very difficult conversation to have with them, but it's what we need to do for their own safety and longevity, okay? So those were our 4 types of athletes that you're going to encounter in your class. For you guys, this returning athlete, that's what we've got right now, coming back to the box every day. People returning from COVID. Hey, coach, I did 1,000 burpees every day at home. I'm still fit. Indeed you are, but you're probably not ready to do a 1 rep max deadlift or back squat right now. You know what I mean? So we just have to look at it that way. In this article, I thought I had it listed in here. This is the table I told you about. And I'll try to get Thomas the link to this article. This shows you how to calculate a workout that has wall balls, rowing, and kettlebells in it. And it's pretty cool. So it'll kind of show you how long these things should take so that you can then plan in advance a workout. So you should know roughly the time domain that it'll take, right? This is based off of then more an advanced athlete or even an experienced athlete. And as we say, program for the best, then scale it down for the rest, okay? So it may be, no. Okay, I'll share it with Thomas, this article. I thought it was in here. I'm sorry, it's not. It's called Scaling, and it's on the level 3 material, but it's super good. It has so much great material in it, and I'll make sure that you guys get the link to it, okay?
I think I know how it's called. It's called Scaling, and the author is Jeremy Gordon.
That is correct, sir. That is the
everybody
article.
can write that down. It's Jeremy Gordon, Scaling. I think it's Scaling CrossFit workouts, and you can see it in either in the CrossFit level 3 study material, or you can just go on CrossFit.com and put in Jeremy Gordon or Scaling, and then you can see it. It's a really good article.
I got it right here. I put it in the chat for you guys. There you go. That article is money. That's a really good one. You can just click on that and it'll take you straight to the article. So guys, that's all I've got. That was almost an hour. Sorry. I like to talk about that stuff. Do you guys have any questions?
I have one question.
Yes.
So I teach the Monday evening classes. It's 3 hours back to back. And just last Monday, the first part was a gymnastics capacity part where people did chin-ups. And the second part was just a normal workout. And what I've noticed also in other classes that I've taught, as soon as people have to go to the rig and do exercises at the rig, my group management, which is usually, I would say, fairly good, kind of gets thrown off in some way. And I'm not sure if that is something like my favorite movements are not on the rig. I like to use the barbell. If that's like an inner thing that I kind of transfer onto my class or something like that. But for some reason, that part of the class for me is very, like, I'm not satisfied with that part of the class. And okay. I'm not sure what, like.
Let me ask you some questions. Do more than one person work at a station?
No.
Okay.
So this time, because of COVID, I had them divided into 2 groups. So the first group started in the rig and the second group started with the push-ups.
Okay. So here's a couple of things to consider. If more than one person's working at a pull-up station, it just sounds like you maybe need to give a little bit more direction and guidance. So 2 people, pull-up station, the shorter of you 2 is going to go first. And everyone's going to do 3 repetitions. And then we're going to meet back here. And I know that sounds very controlling, but that may be a better way to kind of keep things moving along and keep them motivated. And then depending on the experience level of your class, maybe a better thing to do instead of having those people do push-ups is you'll start to see people become curious. So partner A, I want you to practice the kip swing. Partner B, I want you to look to see if you're opening and if they're opening and closing the shoulders. And we're going to do this for 3 repetitions. Then you get participation by them. They start to feel like they're learning something, and you've given them a number of repetitions to complete, and that also then keeps things on track. We see the same thing at the level 1 when we do the pull-up progression. We'll younger red shirts will be like, hey, okay, we're going to do the kip swing. And they don't say how many kip swings. So some people do 1, some people do 10. And you know what I mean? So it sounds very like you're being very directive, but people don't know what they don't know. So unless it's specified on the whiteboard, and you can do that in advance, we're going to do 10 kip swings. We're going to do 10 kip swings and a kip. You know what I mean? And that may be a way to better curve that. And yeah, if it's not your jam, then yeah, you're probably not going to put as much motivation into it as you might maybe a snatch or a clean.
Yeah.
But then you can mitigate that and not rush through it, but you can mitigate how much time you spend on it by then allocating or specifying the number of reps that you're going to do. And that lets them know, and it lets you know, and that kind of keeps you guys both on track.
I do really try to like give a certain amount of repetitions for them to do, so everyone knows what to do. But then I kind of get stressed out. Like some people, it takes them much longer to do 10 kip swings than for other people. And if I see a lot of people already waiting, and I want everyone to finish their reps, I just get stressed out if like I see a lot of people just standing there and waiting, even though it's probably not too long. It's just yeah.
Next time, actually, when you notice that, look at your watch and see how long actually it is.
Yeah,
it's not that long. And that's another thing that we've learned. Don't feel like you need. Yes, you need to stay organized, but you don't have to rush the people. They're happy to be there. You know, you shouldn't feel like you're such under a pressure that they got to be moving the whole time. That's not the case. In my gym, our classes are only 45 minutes because people want 15 minutes of social time. So we don't start a class back to back. We actually we have the opportunity, our classes are scheduled for 60 minutes, but they actually only run for 45 minutes. And it's laid back and people can talk with one another instead of one class after the other where no one can talk with each other. The coaches get no breaks, and that's how we do it in our gym. Obviously, because we're smaller, and in Rhineland Falls, it has to be an Einbahnstraße. The people can only come in one way and out the other way. So, but it's worked out for us. So that's kind of how we do it. So.
Cool. I will definitely try out the participation part. I haven't tried that yet, so I will do that next time. That was a good hint. Thank you.
Well, give the athlete something to watch and give their buddy something to watch. And some people will love that and other people won't know, but I hate to say it, I don't hate to say it. I see that most Germans are a lot more curious to learn this stuff and to understand it than like Americans. We don't give a shit. You tell me to jump up on the bar and swing 10 times, I'm going to swing 10 times. And I see a lot of Germans come to our classes and they're very curious as to how the movement works. What's the Bewegungsmuster? Warum? And that's a great time to kind of, one, help you keep fresh with the material and content, and two, to kind of put some knowledge on them. It's very simple stuff. Watch their armpit, and you both get something from it.
Good. Thank you.
Anything else?
Mac, I got a question for, I'm just curious to get your thoughts on it. When you're at the level 1 or the level 2, what do you see are the areas that most CrossFit coaches are lacking and should be focusing on to improve in order to be better coaches for other people?
Progressions. No one knows the progressions. Everyone uses, you're taught in the level 1, the progressions for a push press, a push jerk, a sumo deadlift high pull, a med ball clean. And most people returning to the level 2 or coming to the level 1 from even more experienced or longer renowned CrossFit boxes have never practiced the progressions and or never practiced the squat therapy. And these things are so basic, or the kipping pull-up progressions, or the never practice. And these things are really, really great tools, because if we think about how often the average member comes in the gym, it's 3 to 4 times a week, and they simply do not have enough exposure to develop consistency within the movement or even a proper understanding. So you can mix up the progressions within your warm-up. And you can say, we're going to run 400 meters, then we're going to do 10 times a dip and hold. Then we're going to run 300 meters, and we're going to do a dip drive slow. Then you're going 200. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be the so structured progression that you learned at the level 1. For the most part, it probably should be. But this is over and over and over again, something that we just see people either don't know. When applying to be an intern for the seminar staff, it's one of the requirements. Most people come unaware of the progressions. And then at the level 2, most of the times the movements are taught without those progressions. You can, of course, make them fancy, but they're pretty good how they are. And that's ultimately where we see most people go wrong, is not using those things. They were developed in order to teach anyone those movements, and they can, in fact, do so.
And how much, if you would, for example, if you would talk to maybe a guy or a girl who is now becoming a coach, how hard would you stress those progressions? Like when do coaches know that they are getting, that they are, like, we understand that we can always get better, but maybe you have from experience, like, when do you know you're proficient at them? Is it maybe that you maybe can perform it, like that you get it out of your head, or you get a certain amount of people moving in the right direction in a certain amount of time? Is there something specific that maybe you can give as that the coaches can gauge? Am I moving towards that or moving away from that?
Well, there's a couple ways, right? If the athletes become easier to cue, so does our job get easier? Then they're understanding the progressions. And let's think back to, sorry, I have to stand.
No problem.
Are our athletes finishing and completing benchmark workouts, Elizabeth, Grace, Fran, in optimal times? These are the ultimate expression of points of performance and technical proficiency. And those are, you can either look at it from the coaching perspective and from a performance perspective. Is my job getting easier? Do I have to explain things over and over again, or do people know what it means to maintain a vertical torso and open their hips? And is someone finishing Grace, in under 5 minutes, or Fran in under 5 minutes? Are their 1 rep maxes going up? That's kind of how we gauge whether people are employing and really grasping the progressions or not.
So the reason why I'm asking this question is because a lot of coaches, like people that I've met and also talked to, have a hard time being objective about their coaching journey and knowing if they're getting better or not, because sometimes it's really hard to get a sense of it in a class, because you get one thing going on good, and then there comes the next lesson and you're like, man, I fucked it up.
Yeah, so, but I think that's everyone's, just one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. If I can walk in now and write on my whiteboard level 1 push press progression, and I don't have to say anything, and everyone goes and grabs a PVC pipe and starts moving through it, I know we're doing some good stuff. You know what I mean? But that's a very, I think we in general, we set the bar way too high for ourselves. And I think to give yourself something a little bit more attainable goal. Did I speak to everyone in my class today? Did I give everyone a cue today? Did someone, not everyone, did someone get better today? And did they have fun? That's it. Those are the things that you can measure your success by. And that can expand to, now I talked to everyone in the class. I gave everyone a cue in the class. I gave 2 people cues and 2 people got better. Till you can do that, it's just, you're continually refining that till you can get around the class to where I gave 3 cues to every person in the class. You know what I mean? And those are ways to kind of gauge that. But that comes with time, a lot of time. It's not something just done, overnight, or that's kind of experience. And I think the biggest thing that you guys, you're not checking back. You're always looking forward. An example of your thing. Am I progressing forward? Well, have you checked back from where you came from? Because you're way better than where you started. You know what I mean? I'm not really big on looking back on where we came from, but you got to do that every once in a while. And it's the same thing within your classes, check back. I remember when these people had no idea what a push press is. Now everyone can do a push press, you know? So I think I'm just going to pick on you guys some more. I see that like in general, when I write a workout on the whiteboard, 150 burpees. A lot of my participants or members, they're German, they come in and they're like, holy cow, 150 burpees. And I see it as 10 sets of 5 sets. You know what I mean? I see it in little chunks, one after the other. And that's how you should look at your coaching journey as well. It's just a little bit at a time, continually getting better, just chipping away at it, you know, seeing small progressions. And I think we're illusioned by what we see in the internet, social media. You know, the CrossFit athletes that we see and how they move and how they perform, these coaches, they've been at it for a very long time. You know, they just didn't get there. It just happens that now they've reached their stardom and they're posting stuff in the internet. But there was a lot, just like a musician, an artist, there's so much time they spent that no one, you know, knows about to get them where they were. You know what I mean? We can't forget about that.
True. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Marcus. I think that's going to be something that's going to help every single one of the coaches really to see if they're progressing forward.
Yeah, just give yourself measurable and small goals. Hey, did I give everyone in the chin-up progression a number of reps? Did I give them something to look for? There you go. Something as small as that can kind of really help you gauge your success and progress.
Any questions left? I think it looks good. Mac, you want to present the homework? Oh, Gil. Yeah, she goes.
One small question. And the question is about cues. Do you, like, how often do you expand your collection of cues?
Every weekend.
Every weekend, okay.
Yeah, man.
Like, do you also try out new cues, or like, how do you like expand that collection?
Exactly as you said. Well, you know, I have the opportunity to work with new red shirts and CrossFit trainers every weekend, and I learn something every weekend. But I'm also not afraid to try things. You know what I mean? If I say, hey, hope die Hände Wochenende, and that's what we do for push jerks, then that's what you know what I mean? Or hooray for ice cream. If that gets the athlete to do what I want, then, you know, I'll try it. And you're not bound. You're only limited by your imagination. So there's not, I'm always on the search for new ones. And that's kind of what one of those points said, you know, never stop learning, because if you stop learning new cues, your athletes stop progressing as well. So you've got to continually develop your cues to further develop their progression as well. Because they're very basic cues that are going to get them to a certain level, and then you're going to have to advance your level of cueing to get them to advance their level of performance. So.
Okay.
Yeah, man. That's the beauty of the level 1, man. I learn so much every weekend. Everyone's like, oh, I learned so much, but we learn some really cool stuff from the participants every weekend as well. So it's pretty cool to have that opportunity. We would like to build like a cue library and post it on our YouTube channel that you can just, where people submit different cues, you know what I mean? And that is one of my goals eventually, is just keep collecting those, because there's always something new, you know, that someone comes up with.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, Mac. I think you can present the homework.
Yeah, the homework was to go back and check out, like you said, that I wanted you guys to go through and check that this article I posted here, and then try to use that formula. Just try to go through, pick a workout on CrossFit.com using the information in that. You can choose the one from the last 2 days. Try to use the equation in that article that I gave you guys here in the chat. Calculate your times and go check the people's times in the comments and see if they match up, see if you were close or if you weren't close. Because those are just like, you wouldn't know those people in your class neither. So the people that posted their times to the thing on CrossFit.com can kind of be a way for you to gauge whether you're kind of in the ballpark or not. That's just something fun to do if you want to give it a try.
Thank you, Mac. Is there something else you want to add, or something you want to give forward, like a personal message or something like that?
No, man, keep up what you guys are doing. This is great. If you guys have any questions, hit me up. This is awesome to see. We need more stuff like this. This is really great, man. Coaches development is something I think that we lack in Germany, and trying to get you guys the respect and accreditation and recognition that you deserve, because you guys do great stuff, is my next priority. So I live in Rheinland-Pfalz, and I'm trying to get in contact with the USBD here and the sports, but they're just so busy with Corona right now that I'm not getting a chance to have an appointment with them. But what we want ultimately, like in America, is that the level 1 certificate is recognized here in Europe by the ANCI or whatever it's called here in Europe, in the EU, and then the level 3 as well, so that you guys can in fact make a good living and get the recognition that you deserve for the good work that you're doing. You just don't hand out towels and water bottles. You guys do. You change lives, and you should be recognized and paid for that. And unfortunately, I just see we don't, as CrossFit trainers, get that recognition. And that's my work as you know, the director of CrossFit Germany, or DACH, or whatever we're called now. I think we changed our changed the name on us. So, but that's really my goal. I want you guys to have a license A, B, and C like there is for Gewichtheben, so that you can add that to your CV, and you can get paid for the good work that you guys do, as you should. Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't say thank you. I'm trying.
No, honestly, I just heard a podcast where somebody was talking, and he has got the level 1 as well, but he also studied sports and did loads more. And they were actually saying on a podcast that there's too many people out there who shouldn't be coaches. And they were referring to people like us, or like, you know, us having the level 1 only and not studied sports and studied the whole thing basically. So I was a bit disappointed, because we put so much work in to try to get better, and we keep learning and developing ourselves. And it's a shame that people see that differently. I mean, they haven't really referred to me personally or anybody else, but still I kind of felt I'm one of them, you know, who are not good enough. Yeah.
Well, there's a very big misunderstanding. Understand that, or they understand, or they see that people took the level 1 and they went out and opened a gym, which it may not be the right choice, right? But Coach Glassman has afforded people the opportunity to do what they love. So you go to the course, and any one of those people that speaks from that perspective, they can't tell me that they haven't made mistakes either. No one comes from either. I have a bachelor's degree in sports science as well, but I don't throw that in everyone's face. I don't need to. I mean, I make mistakes as well. You're going to make mistakes. They make mistakes. And that's something that is also on my agenda, to change the perception as how things are viewed in social media and the outside world. Because you guys work really hard, and the difference is that you change people's lives, and what happens in SmileX or CleverFit is not life changing. It's not life altering, and you guys should be recognized and rewarded for what you do. And it's going to be an uphill battle. I mean, it first starts with the German government recognizing that we're not tourism, because that's where our job falls right now. We're part of the tourism branche and not wellness and Gesundheit, and that's already a problem. So we're just seen as a novice, novel, Freizeit activity, and it should be viewed otherwise. But that's going to be a very difficult thing to change people's perspective. But actually, the Corona may be our opportunity to change that, because there's not one person from my gym that's been sick or ill because of the Corona. And it's because of what they do every day in our affiliate and in our gym, and how we train them and we talk to them about diet, sleep, stress reduction. It doesn't happen at other places. So this may be a good stepping stone for us, but the first thing is I got to get them to talk to me. And I think they're a little busy right now with hygiene concepts and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Dude, what podcast was that?
It's an unknown person, actually. It's just
Okay.
somebody who opened his own fitness academy and just doing a good thing. Actually, I like his concept and everything. That's why I was interested in the
Yeah.
podcast. But then I was a bit disappointed in the end when I heard it. Yeah.
Those are normally the people then that use hashtag CrossFit or CrossFitness, and then I have to bring my lawyer and we have to take down their websites, but that's all right. So that's why I was curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can send it to you, Mac, if you want to. I can
Please.
find it.
I mean, I'm open for these types of, it's not that I want to attack this person either, but we need to have a voice as well. We need to be represented in these conversations as well. And it's not always just one-sided saying CrossFit level 1 trainers are bad. Because, I mean, there's bad employees everywhere you go. And there's a learning process. The CrossFit level 1 is in no way, in fact, and never has been designed or meant to make you an awesome coach after you attend it. We all know that. I mean, that's not the intent of it. The level 2 course, the level 3, it's a progression. It takes time.
Yeah. Maybe he didn't really reach out to the level 1 CrossFit coaches. It's more like, I guess, that he was saying nobody who didn't study sports should be a coach or a trainer because they don't know enough about it, which I agree. Kind of, I mean, of course you studied much longer and loads more than we do, but there's people out there who are trying and are not bad, I think. And
exactly. And I mean, do I need to have a degree to teach you how to do a burpee and a thruster? Probably not. And
no.
And if we think about a burpee, there are people that are afraid to go down to the floor because they don't have the capacity to get back up. And that's how I view training. I'm preparing people to live on their own independently. And if I was talking about at a high level, an Olympic athlete, yeah, maybe we can talk about whether you need a formal education or not. But I think what you guys are doing here is how you develop yourself and how you prepare people for everyday challenges. Did you guys know that the box that's bolstered, I don't even know how you say it in English, the one from like Superfit, the one that's soft? Do you know why they built this box? It's not for your shins. It's actually for people that could not do a burpee and couldn't go to the floor. So this was first developed for someone, a lady that weighed 200 kilos, and she wanted to do a burpee. And she could not go to the floor. That was impossible for her. So they built this box, put pads around it, and she did at the highest level. She laid herself on that box and tried to push herself away. And that was her first step. And now she's at the point where she can go to the floor and go up. She's still working on bringing her weight down, but that's why that box was invented. And that's the practical application of our program. It just is what it is. I mean, everyone would like to have Rich Froning in our gyms, but it's not the reality. I don't actually, but I want to work with people like that want to improve their life and want to play with their grandchildren and live on their own and not be afraid to fall on the floor and not be able to get back up. That's where our work lies. So, and I think to do that well, you just got to care. The rest will come, and not be an asshole. That's probably important too. But. Anything else?
Where's the best way that people can reach you, Mac? Is it email? Is it CrossFit Germany?
My email I can put in here. If you write CrossFit Deutschland, it could be that Keta answers. So I don't know what kind of answer she gives you. No. She does a great job. But that's my email. You guys can reach out to me or via social media, however you want, WhatsApp. I'm here for you guys. So if you have any questions, if you run across anything, just let me know.
Thank you.
I will either answer in 1 to 3 seconds or 1 to 3 days. So that's kind of my guarantee, all right? 1 to 3 seconds or 1 to 3 days. But yes, I will get back to you, whatever it may be.
When will you be coming back to Munich?
That's a great question. I will be in Nuremberg in the first week of August. So I think is next seminar. And then I need to come down and see you guys about some other things going on in your area.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And then hopefully I need to go to the Bergluft yet. So I need to go see some mountains and fresh air. So, yeah, very soon. So yeah, I hope in August I'll be in your guys' direction. That's my plan. So
All right, Mac, you're always welcome.
Yes, I look forward to it. Just don't program any crazy workouts. Everyone thinks that when I show up, because I work for CrossFit, you need to kill me with a workout. It's not. We can drink beer. That's totally fine. We don't need to do a partner workout where we run 7 kilometers, which happened at one gym. Not necessary. Not necessary.
Do a beer mile.
Beer, we can do that. Yes.
All right, cool. Mac, thank you.
No, thank you guys. Thank
took
you
the
for what
time.
you're doing. Thank you very much, and I am here for you. Whatever you need, just reach out. Let me know. If I don't know the answer, I'll find someone who does.
Yeah, if you know any coaches that can benefit from it, just shoot me a mail. I'm going to reach out to them, because also it's my mission. I've made it my mission because when I started, I learned everything via online. So my teacher was YouTube and the CrossFit Journal, and now I'm also on the mission like you to really. I've wrote it down yesterday, is to shorten the learn curve for every aspiring CrossFit coach, so that they for example, that we can compromise our experience of years for them into months, and then they can progress quickly and help more. So that's the mission of this inner circle, to give them all the skills, resources, and give them also access to people like you, so that every single one of them can shorten the time frame to get their knowledge, experience, and wisdom, so that they can help more people. So if you know anyone who's a good suit for that, I'll be thankful for you to just shoot me a message, and I'm also going to reach out to them, so with that we can continue together this message and this mission. And if we also in the future, if you need any help or I can support you, just let me know or let us know. We'll be happy to do that.
Fantastic. That's great.
All right.
We hope to produce some good stuff for you guys coming up. You'll see some cool stuff coming out from the level 2, which should be some benefit to you guys as well. So check out those videos. It's Kati from Österreich. So she's a little she puts out some good stuff. So those videos will be coming out here in the next couple of weeks for you guys. So
cool.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Matt.
you.
Thank you very much.
Ciao.